Step-by-Step Math Series presents Completing the Square, Part 3. Now that you know how to complete the square, the next step I want to do is very briefly describe how we use completing the square for graphing. This technique is not used often, and the reason is because finding the vertex of a parabola is very easy with a formula. But it's really interesting how things are really interconnected, and that's where I want to demonstrate here. So I have this quadratic equation here. So what I want to do is I want to add 15 on both sides. Now I might skip some steps, and if you want full details on how to complete the square, go back to completing the square part 2, and I go over 3 very challenging problems. Okay, so I got to factor out a negative here so that I can create a perfect square trinomial. And I'm going to take -8. I'm going to divide by 2. I'm going to square it. That's going to be -4 square, which is 16. And when I rewrite this, I'm going to add 16 here. I'm going to subtract 16 here. And this right here is my perfect square trinomial. I know it's written this way, and that's -1. Right here, you would continue on by dividing by -1 for completing the square, and you would solve for x. Well, this is all I need to do for completing the square. Now I'm going to go more into the graphing aspects. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1 on both sides. And so it's going to be -x minus 4 square plus 1 equals 0. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this so that I can have a y. Y equals -x minus 4 square plus 1. And the reason why I want to write it this way is because it looks more reasonable for graphing. And what I want to do is I want to also compare it to the general form, this form here. You might have seen it before, for identifying the vertex. And the vertex is h and k. So the vertex for our situation, it's going to be h, which is the opposite of h. In this case, it's going to be 4. And k is 1. Kind of hard to understand the vertex. Whatever you have inside the parentheses, it needs to be opposite to that. You notice here it's -h, and here it's +h. So whatever's in here, opposite to that. Okay. So what does this all mean? Well, we got a vertex of 4, 1, and we also know that the parabola is pointing down, or it has a sad face. So how does this graph look? Well, here it is. This is it right here. When we use a graphing calculator or the computer, we can graph this function. We can graph any of these functions. We can graph y is equal to -x squared plus 8x minus 15, or y is equal to -x minus 4 squared plus 1. Believe it or not, these two are the same. If you expand this, be careful with that negative, and add the 1, you go back to the original equation. And we know that the vertex is 4, 1. Well, here's the origin, 0, 0. And 4, 1 is right there, right around there somewhere, right here. And we know that the parabola is pointing down because of this negative, so we know it's going down, pointing down. There will be other videos, there are other videos that will demonstrate this pointing down, pointing up feature of a parabola. But this gives you an idea of the characteristics of completing a square. I mean, you complete the square, but there, in the middle of it, there's additional information that you can use so that you can graph it. And of course, if you remember this particular problem, we did do this one in part 2. And the answers, if you remember, if we continued here on completing the square, the answer was x equals 5 and x equals 3. You ever wonder why or what these answers are? Well, x equals 5 is right there. That's 5 right there. And x equals 3 is right here. See, these answers that you're getting when you complete the square, it gives you the roots. What it means is it tells you where it has the intercept. Where's the intercept from the x-axis? Now this is the x, and this one's the y. When you complete the square, or when you factor and solve for x, or when you put it in the quadratic formula, it gives you answers. In this case, 2 answers. Well, it tells you what the roots are. It tells you where, in this case, the parabola touches the x, and it touches on 5 and 3. So there's a lot of information here. The point is, completing the square not only helps you to find the roots or find the x answers, but also in this case, if you stop in the middle, you can rearrange it, find the vertex, and it gives you additional information on the graph, as well as if it's pointing up or down.